The Mafia boss told Sammy Davis Jr. to cancel his shows or face consequences. Sammy kept performing. What they did to him that night after his final bow became entertainment industry legend. It was November 1957, and Sammy Davis Jr. was at the height of his powers, headlining at the Copa Room in the Sands Hotel, Las Vegas. The Rat Pack was drawing unprecedented crowds, and Sammy's solo performances were selling out every night. But success in Vegas came with complications that most entertainers never talked about publicly. The city was controlled by organized crime, and every major entertainment venue operated under the watchful eye of powerful mob figures who considered Las Vegas their personal kingdom. For most performers, this meant following certain unwritten rules, staying out of the wrong places, and never crossing the invisible lines that the underworld had drawn throughout the city. Sammy Davis Jr. had never been good at following rules. The trouble started when Sammy began dating Kim Novak, the stunning blonde actress who was one of Columbia Pictures' biggest stars. In 1957, interracial relationships were not just socially controversial. In Las Vegas, they were considered a direct challenge to the established order that kept the city's lucrative entertainment machine running smoothly. Harry Cohn, the powerful head of Columbia Pictures, had significant financial interests tied to Las Vegas casinos. When photos of Sammy and Kim together began appearing in gossip magazines, Cohn received concerned calls from his associates in organized crime. They made it clear that Sammy's relationship was creating problems that needed to be resolved. The first warning came through intermediaries. Frank Costello, one of the most powerful figures in organized crime, sent word through casino managers that Sammy should reconsider his romantic choices if he wanted to continue working in Las Vegas. Sammy dismissed the warning with characteristic bravado. "What are they going to do?" he told his friend and fellow Rat Pack member Dean Martin. "Cancel my contract? I'm making them too much money." Dean was more concerned. "Sammy, these aren't studio executives. These are serious people who don't make empty threats." But Sammy had always believed that his talent and earning power provided protection. He'd faced discrimination and threats throughout his career and had overcome them through sheer force of personality and professional excellence. He couldn't imagine that anyone would risk harming someone who was generating millions of dollars in revenue for Las Vegas casinos. The second warning was more direct. Mickey Cohen, a notorious Los Angeles mob figure who had connections throughout the entertainment industry, arranged a meeting with Sammy at a private restaurant in Beverly Hills. "Kid," Cohen said, lighting an expensive cigar, "you're a talented entertainer. You've got a bright future. Don't let personal choices destroy everything you've worked for." "My personal life is my business," Sammy replied. Cohen's smile disappeared. "Not when it affects business. And right now, your relationship is affecting business. Walk away from the girl, or we'll make sure you can't perform anywhere in this country." Sammy left the meeting angry, but still convinced that the threats were mostly bluster. He'd built his career on refusing to be intimidated, on breaking barriers that other people said couldn't be broken. He wasn't about to start backing down now. The final warning came directly from Frank Costello himself. During a phone call to Sammy's dressing room at the Sands, Costello's voice was calm but unmistakably menacing. "Mr. Davis, you have three choices. You can stop seeing Miss Novak voluntarily. You can stop performing in Las Vegas voluntarily, or we can make both decisions for you involuntarily." "Are you threatening me?" Sammy asked. "I'm offering you business advice," Costello replied. "But the advice comes with a deadline. You have 1 week to make your choice." Instead of heeding the warning, Sammy booked additional shows. He told his manager he wasn't going to be pushed around by guys in expensive suits who think they own the world. For the next week, Sammy performed every night at the Copa Room, delivering the energetic, crowd-pleasing performances that had made him famous. He sang, danced, did impressions, and worked the audience with a professional skill that had earned him recognition as one of the greatest entertainers of his generation. But he was also making a statement. Every night he stepped onto that stage was a declaration that he wouldn't be intimidated, that his artistic freedom was worth more than his personal safety. On November 15, 1957, Sammy gave what would later be remembered as one of his greatest performances. The Copa Room was packed with celebrities, tourists, and the usual mix of high rollers and mob-connected figures who made up Vegas nightlife. For 90 minutes, Sammy commanded the stage with an energy and charisma that left the audience demanding multiple encores. As he took his final bow, Sammy felt the satisfaction that came from knowing he'd given everything he had to the performance. The standing ovation lasted nearly 10 minutes, and the crowd was still cheering as he left the stage. In his dressing room, Sammy's manager, Joe Grant, was nervous. "Sam, maybe we should get you out of town for a while. Take a vacation, let things cool down." "Joe, I'm not running from anyone," Sammy replied, toweling off the sweat from his performance. "I've got 2 more weeks of shows here, and I'm going to do every one of them. These people don't make idle threats. These people need me more than I need them. I'll be fine." Sammy changed into casual clothes, slacks, a sport shirt, and a light jacket. He planned to drive home to his house in the hills above Las Vegas, maybe have a drink and unwind from the intensity of the show. At 1:15 a.m., Sammy walked out the employee exit of the Sands Hotel toward his Cadillac convertible, which was parked in the performers section of the lot. The November air was crisp, and the desert silence was broken only by the distant sounds of slot machines and late-night revelers. As he reached his car and inserted the key into the door lock, Sammy noticed a black Lincoln sedan pull into the parking lot and position itself to block the exit. 2 more cars quickly followed, effectively trapping him in the isolated area behind the hotel. For the first time since the threats had begun, Sammy felt genuine fear. 6 men emerged from the 3 vehicles. They weren't carrying guns that Sammy could see, but their intent was unmistakable. These weren't random muggers or drunk tourists. These were professionals who had been sent to deliver a message. "Mr. Davis," the apparent leader called out, approaching slowly, "we tried to handle this the easy way." "I don't want any trouble," Sammy said, his hands visible and away from his body. "You should have thought about that before you decided to ignore friendly advice." What happened next lasted only about 3 minutes, but it felt like an eternity to Sammy. The men didn't waste time with conversation or additional warnings. Their job was to send a message that would be understood throughout the entertainment industry. The beating was methodical and professional. They avoided his face. Sammy's livelihood depended on his appearance, and permanently damaging his looks would have been counterproductive. Instead, they focused on his ribs, his back, and his legs. The message was clear. This was punishment, not an attempt to end his career permanently. When it was over, Sammy was lying beside his Cadillac, barely conscious and struggling to breathe. The men got back into their cars and drove away without saying another word. Sammy managed to crawl to his car and pull himself up enough to reach the door handle. Every movement sent waves of pain through his body, but he knew he needed to get to a hospital. With tremendous effort, he managed to start the car and drive the few blocks to Desert Springs Hospital. The emergency room staff at Desert Springs had seen everything Las Vegas could produce: overdoses, gambling-related violence, accidents involving drunk tourists. But they'd rarely treated someone who'd been the victim of what was clearly a professional beating. Dr. Robert Chen, the emergency room physician who treated Sammy, later said, "His injuries were severe but precisely targeted: broken ribs, kidney bruising, muscle damage, but nothing that would cause permanent disability. It was clear that whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Sammy spent 4 days in the hospital under an assumed name while his injuries healed. The official story released to the press was that he'd been in a car accident and needed time to recover, but word of what had really happened spread quickly through the entertainment industry. Within hours, every major performer in Las Vegas knew that Sammy Davis Jr. had been beaten by organized crime figures as punishment for defying their orders. The response from the entertainment community was immediate and unprecedented. Frank Sinatra, who had remained publicly neutral during the conflict, flew to Las Vegas and arranged a meeting with the same mob figures who had ordered the attack. "You made your point," Sinatra told them. "Now, leave him alone." Dean Martin and Joey Bishop visited Sammy in the hospital, making it clear that an attack on one member of the Rat Pack was an attack on all of them. More surprisingly, performers who weren't particularly close to Sammy also rallied to his support. The message was clear. The entertainment community wouldn't tolerate organized crime using physical violence to control their personal lives. The pressure worked. Within a week, word came down through the same channels that had delivered the original threats. The matter was closed. Sammy could return to performing without fear of additional violence as long as he understood that certain boundaries existed and should be respected. When Sammy returned to the stage 10 days later, he received one of the longest standing ovations of his career. The audience included many of the same people who had been present the night he was attacked, and their applause was both an expression of admiration for his talent and recognition of his courage in the face of genuine danger. But Sammy had learned something important from the experience. He quietly ended his relationship with Kim Novak and became much more careful about challenging the unwritten rules that governed Las Vegas entertainment. "I learned that talent doesn't make you bulletproof," he would later tell close friends. Sometimes discretion really is the better part of valor. However, Sammy's response to the attack ultimately strengthened his position in Las Vegas rather than weakening it. The entertainment industry's unified support had demonstrated that performers had more collective power than the mob had realized. The days of threatening individual entertainers with physical violence were largely over. Mickey Cohen, who had delivered one of the original warnings to Sammy, later said, "The kid had more guts than sense, but you had to respect him for not backing down. After that, we found better ways to resolve disagreements with performers." The incident became legendary in entertainment industry circles, though the full details weren't made public for many years. It was seen as a turning point in the relationship between organized crime and Las Vegas entertainment, marking the beginning of a shift toward more professional and less physically threatening methods of resolving conflicts. Dr. Chen, who had treated Sammy's injuries, became a close friend and served as the entertainer's personal physician for the rest of his life. "What impressed me most," Dr. Chen said years later, "wasn't that he survived the attack. It was that he went back to performing with even more energy and passion than before. Most people would have been intimidated. Sammy was inspired." The attack also had an unexpected effect on Sammy's performances. Having faced genuine physical danger and survived, he developed an even more fearless stage presence. His willingness to take artistic risks, to push boundaries in his performances, seemed to grow from his realization that he'd already faced the worst that his enemies could do to him. "After that night in the parking lot," Dean Martin observed, "Sammy performed like a man who had nothing left to lose, and paradoxically that made him even more powerful on stage." The story of Sammy's beating became a cautionary tale told to young performers entering the Las Vegas entertainment scene, but it was also an inspiring example of how an artist's courage in the face of danger could ultimately strengthen both their career and the entertainment community as a whole. Today, a small plaque in the employee parking area behind what was once the Sands Hotel marks the approximate spot where the attack occurred. It reads simply, "Courage Under Fire, November 15, 1957. Entertainment industry veterans who know the story often point it out to younger performers as a reminder that artistic freedom sometimes requires genuine personal sacrifice. If this incredible story of artistic courage, organized crime confrontation, and the night when professional defiance nearly cost Sammy Davis, Jr. his career moved you, make sure to subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to remember that standing up for your principles sometimes requires facing genuine danger. Have you ever had to choose between your safety and your values? Let us know in the comments about the times when doing the right thing meant taking real risks, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for more amazing true stories about courage in the face of genuine threats.